because I'm absolutely sure you're not alone.
So as I'm connecting, I keep doing it through the arms. I keep playing out here instead of being with my whole spine.
Right. Why does that happen?
Just where my concentration is, probably.
That's good. If you're 90% of the way to solving the problem. So, a little stronger. Touch my center. See, now you can feel my foot through that structure. I can feel your back foot. So, a lot of times people, when they grab the wrists. What's that? You're free to move. When you attack, you're trying to connect to the center. Okay? Later, this would be to give movement. I actually think that you guys have probably, because I met Nick Sensei up in Seattle, and I played with him, and despite his rather bear-like size, he's actually very soft. Okay? So I suspect you've had better training, but I'm sure if you've gone anywhere, there's this whole group of people you've trained with who think that this is about, you can't move me. And usually what I tell people is that if it sounds like you're having a difficult time on the commode, you're not properly relaxed. Okay? Whoever heard of winning anything in martial arts by making yourself immovable? Okay? At some point you have to do, it might be the guy who tries to throw you that for a split second being, grounded, letting him bounce off you with a hip throw is a skill, but at some point you have to do something to them. You do not ever win a fight just by you not being movable. Okay? Even in sumo, you have to throw the guy out of the ring. You can't just let him keep trying and you not let him. Okay? So what a real attack is this thing we're doing. It's the same on my end. If I grab him and I move, I should be able to put him off balance and then smack him. Okay? That, in the old days, really, it wasn't about how hard you threw the guy, because this was all weapon stuff. So if I could break his balance a little bit, okay, I could reach in, take his, okay, or strike him, put him on his edge here. He couldn't stop that strike now. Was much lighter touch. I think that what happens after World War II is the mainstream Aikido starts to lose its weapons heritage. There were certain teachers like Satomi Sensei and Nishio and Saito who tried to keep the weapons connection, but an awful lot of the teachers, weapon stuff just starts to disappear. And as weapon stuff disappears, all of a sudden it seems to be about how hard you can throw people or how far you can throw them. And that's a really odd thing, because martially, I don't want to throw you out there. I want to drop you right here where I can finish it. But you start to see what happens with modern post-war Aikido, where all of a sudden it's about huge projection throws and ukes that fly across the dojo. The old stuff dropped the guy straight down. And a good attack in the old days was just the ability to touch the guy and have the guy, see, now he, boom. I don't care how hard that was. Okay? I just want him going off balance. And we'll do a little bit this weekend, I think, with put some swords through our obis and let you play with letting your core structure do this balance work, and you can start to see where this stuff came from. Okay? Very light touch, but it was all about putting the guy off balance and drawing your sword and cutting him. It didn't have to do with how hard you smashed the guy. Okay? But you feel that the same thing we're doing here when you grab me, where I touch your center, you touch my center, we have the impasse, and then I'm going to neutralize that and give it direction. You see him start laughing? This happens all the time. It really happens with the Systema guys, happens with Ushiro Sensei and Satomi Sensei. I don't know what it is, but psychologically they say it's very common. You're sitting there, and this is Aikido Sensei. Okay, you hear him going, he's got me, he's got me, he's got me. No. I've been the uke, and it's really funny because you'll sit there and you're going, okay, I've really got him this time. I'm not going to let him move. And then you'll feel him balance out everything, and you feel your power just disappear, and you start giggling. It's the weirdest thing. You just start laughing. It's actually not a scary or aggressive feel at all when they balance out like this. It's your brain just goes, That was really weird. I don't know what it is. But anyway, that's a very common reaction when the power disappears. So, right now, I'm letting him be strong, but I'm being strong. We have the impasse, and then I'm going to take that power away by neutralizing it. And there it is. This is mine now. He's still strong. He's just down there and strong. I didn't actually make him not strong. I just made him be on the floor. So you see how later, you've done all this before. I'm connecting here. If I try and get away from that by collapsing, he should come in here and run through me. You see me try and do it by getting away from him? This is very common. Everybody knows, well, no, I should say it. Most of the people that we train with know they're not supposed to collide. I mean, there are whole bunches of Aikido people that get out here and go, I train with them regularly. And about that much happens when they do that to me. Okay? You notice how successful that was, but people still try it. I don't know why. But anyway, most people know they're not supposed to collide. And so what happens is, as this guy gets here and they start to feel his power, they try and get away from it. See, and I just collapsed. If you come in now, you'll take my space away. So not only am I, when I reach out to somebody, I'm defining their focal point, but I'm also defining my own space. What's my space? This is my space. So yeah, you got your space over there, but I have my space here, and I'm not ever going to let you take that space away from me. So when I bring this together, it has to happen someplace other than where you're holding on. That can't collapse. You feel me bring it to you? Okay, do you see him? You see him start to buckle? You can tell when you do this, you soften stuff up, and you can play with this. There's the shoulder blade thing, softening the joints back here. And I mean soften, not collapse. This is like a spring. And a spring always has outward pressure, even though it's a spring. As soon as you contract, it lost the out. There's never a time when there isn't an outflow in any of this stuff. You touch me, 2 hands, okay? There's always an outflow, even when I'm bringing it in this way, or giving it direction, or moving forward. I'll move my body here. Would you feel there's always something touching? Yes. And this is true later. Okay, I got some videos on Kaishi Waza. Say you're doing Kodagaishi. Okay, so I'm coming along here. When he touches me, I don't go neutral and run around him in a circle. The moment he touches me, I'm touching his center. There's a backflow through any point we're touching. So when he goes to do the Kodagaishi, right there, that was mine. We may or may not get to anything like that this weekend. Just depends on how everybody's doing. But you feel it? It's like I was touching all along. That's what you want. So if he puts a hand on me any place, there's an outflow right there. So this thing we're doing, I can do it through any contact point. Okay? This is just the basic way. Eventually, once you have the form, your body energizes. And then all of these different grabs we have, which seem rather formalized, it's like, ryotatori, morotatori, hijina, all of these. Yeah, they are formalized. It's about training your energetic body. Then later, I don't care what context where he comes up to grapple with me. The moment he touches me, I can run it through that same. And it doesn't have to look like it did in class for your Q tests. You're training your body how to energize on it. So he touches me and I already had him. He just buckles right away. Does that make sense? That's what we're shooting for. But you got to have a process of developing that. And that's what these exercises are about. So we find the impasse, because the impasse tells me that we both have some decent structure. If I extend out to him and he's falling over, it's not much of a challenge to get him to tip over, because he's already falling over on his own. So I check and make sure he's strong. And then if I'm screwed up here, he touches me, he can unbalance me. So right here, then I practice how to neutralize that. Now, right now, I'm saying get the down out of your legs. For most of you, this is what you need to do, is bend your knees. If you're having success with this, some people are already having some success with this, watch what I do. I'm going to talk about the up and the down. I'm streaming some energy out my tailbone and up my spine. Anybody who's a dancer or a yoga person, anybody knows about this. Even a model. They have them walk around with books on their heads. You know that extension they have? So when I bring this to me, if I stake some energy up my spine and come over the top of them, and you didn't see me bend, and you didn't see me drop, it's still, I'm changing basically the angle of my spine. And when that changes, that energy's coming down on him. If I went the other way, he'd float. So if you're having some success with this already, fine. But don't try and get ahead of yourself. I mean, it's perfect. It'll make your Aikido lots better if you can't do that invisibly like that. That's kind of internal power way of doing this. It'll make your Aikido way better if you can just figure this out externally. Out to him, back to me, bending, dropping, rotating if I needed to. Okay, when I rotate, it starts to turn it into waza. But basically, I want to be able to just drop this on top of him. Okay? As long as he can try and get up, but you notice he had to disconnect from me to do it. And of course, martially, if he disconnects, that's when they get popped. See, he doesn't really, now he doesn't, I told him he was going to get popped. He doesn't want to disconnect now, because he knows that's the outflow. As long as he feels that outflow, on some level, he doesn't want to let go, because his brain knows if he lets go, what's happening with that hand that's trying to get to the center. Then it does get to the center. Okay? So there's no power at the contact point. It was flowing to his center. And that actually was one of the reasons why they don't want to let go. They kind of feel stuck. Okay? Just this. He's already, okay? So make sure your hands are alive. I don't think that rigid stuff the Yoshinkan guys do is necessary. I understand why they do it, but I also know a bunch of Yoshinkan guys, and up until they get up to about fourth or fifth dan, they are stiff as hell. Now, we have Robert Mustard Sensei up there in Vancouver, and he is one of the top Yoshinkan guys anywhere, and he's not. So at some point, that process resulted in some relaxation and some functionality. But at the earlier ranks, I don't see that. I just see guys who are real strong, but they collide in, they're very rigid. This whole softening up and receiving thing is not evident in most of their stuff. They just mostly come in and go, whoop. That's great if you can do that, except if you run into somebody else who's got strong structure too, they'll stop it. So make sure you can wiggle your fingers. Make sure that this is an alive connection. So right here, don't let me move you. There. See, there's the impasse. This is alive. Then I'll bring this to me and drop it. And when I'm down here, this should still be alive. Okay? I should be able to do all of this and not lose that. Not only that, once you get him down here, I've dropped my weight on him. Why doesn't he pop right back up? Because I've got a ground path. That's what they call it in Chinese martial arts, a ground path. So this flow of power comes up through the floor to here. And if he tries to stand up, he's got to try and stand up into that. Once I have the ground path, it's really interesting. I should be free to move without losing it. As long as something's touching the ground, which means that if I'm this free, I could be dealing with another attacker while I still have him. Okay? And I think tonight we'll work on trying to connect to two guys, just so you get the feel of it. Okay? So take him down. See if you can lift your feet one at a time and not have him stand back up on you. If you can do that, then you know how to maintain the ground path. Static technique is about how you have to figure out how to connect to them and then give that connection direction. Okay? Flowing technique, they're coming to you. They're attacking you. So, if he's attacking me, he's coming in to me. Well, I don't think you should probably walk in there, because that's a bad thing. But if you're grabbing me, what are you doing with the grab? Yeah, maybe pushing. If you were smarter, you'd come into that point and you'd also turn a little. No, not you going over there, me going over there. Yeah, so you'd be doing something to me. Okay? Like, boom, oh, boom. Okay? It wouldn't even, it's not like I'm going to be doing this for very, I just mostly want to break your balance. Boom, boom, boom. Dissolve your structure. In a fight, that's really what's going to happen. But right now, if I did it, you could stop it. So if I get you off balance, oh, boom, boom, okay, great. So if you're touching me and trying to move me a little bit, like bring my face down for a knee kick. Oh, yeah. So he's doing that, right? Do it. Who moved?
Me.
Did you see him try and move? Okay, so I already had my structure organized when he got there. So even though he tried to reach in and run that spiral, I already had my structure, and he bounced off it when he tried to pull my head down. See him pop? He's trying to get me to come up and down. I've already reached in here. So when he tries to pull this down, he goes up. That's him bouncing himself off the floor through my structure. So how do you get to the point where you can do that? Okay? Static exercise, where he just connects in here. So touch my center. But now, be immovable. This is the stupid uke I told you not to do before. He's not doing anything to me because he's not really attacking. So if I go this way, he shouldn't fall over. Bend your knees. Yeah, see, now he's harder to move. So now I have to do the work. This is not true when he's really attacking me. So I have to go inside there and find him, bring it back to me. Oh, you see him try and get away from it? You see him pop backwards? He just reorganized. As soon as he felt himself falling into my space, he tried to get away from it. So I had to go in more. That's what we were talking about before. Okay? He tried to not go. Now this time, keep touching my center. See, and then I bring it to me, and I'll get you to come here. But a lot of times, guys, they just don't want to go, and so the moment they feel this, then they go the other way. And that's what I'm saying. I'm listening to him. I'm not tight. I'm not forcing this on him at all. Aikido is, I think, especially at the beginning, instead of making this into some sort of pretend samurai encounter, which is, fun from a fantasy standpoint, but A, doesn't have much to do with reality, because we're not samurai, we live in America, we don't carry swords anymore. But the other thing is that, this thing of Shinken Shobu, live blade encounter, that every technique should be done with the spirit of the live blade encounter. At the level that most of us are at, if my partner had a razor-sharp steel sword and I was having an encounter with him, what would my predominant emotion be? I'd be scared to death. Okay? We're not ready for approaching our training from this. If you look at the Sistema guys, what are they trying to do? Release tension, learn how to relax mentally and physically. I think we should be doing the same thing. So our training for the first few years anyway should be about understanding how to relax the body and relax the mind properly. Then you can start to up the intensity level and see if you can stay relaxed mentally and physically. But if we make it all intense from the beginning, you're just going to train tense, which is how I train. I'm not saying that this is anything bad about anybody else. We trained this way. We got in there, and there was no process. The first technique I ever did, they handed me a gi, I went in the back, I suited up, I came out with my new gi. They showed me how to tie my belt. I got on the mat, and the very first thing I did on the mat was Yoko Minuchi, Shihonage, the Ura version with the big step turn. That was, that's kind of a crazy way to learn anything. Okay? It's like, how do we learn to fall down? Bam! If you tuck your leg behind you, it'll be a little better. Oh, okay. Bam! If you turn towards it instead of away from it, you won't hit so hard. That's how we learned. There was no methodology. It was like, people mentioned stuff to you as you did it. Okay? So this is a much more coherent plan. Static technique is how you learn to connect. Feel this conversation we're having. It's not a fight. We're having a conversation. He's talking to me. I'm talking to him. So as I'm starting to talk to him, I'm also listening. If he does something funky like he did before, so he didn't do it, now he's staying connected to me. But if he jumped back suddenly, trying to get away from this, it's going to change the direction. I'm listening to him tell me. How many of you have trained with Kevin Choate Sensei? Okay, so you've been in his obscure classes where he mumbles and he stands here and people run up and then they fall down. This is his interpretation of the systema stuff as it applies to Aikido. And what he's really focusing on in his classes is the listening aspect. I'll probably be focusing a lot more on how I'm projecting out to my partner and talking to him, okay? Because that's what Sensei's been emphasizing a lot in the classes is people's inability to project and talk to their partners. But Kevin, his whole thing is look at the guy, look how he's coming in, and let him tell you how he'd like to fall down. And then just move in such a way that that gets expressed. You don't have to throw him, okay? He's coming in to grab here. You see that curve right here? I mean, you just did that. God, you got to get out of the habit of doing this for everybody. Yeah. But look at this curve. Look at everything. So as he's coming in, if I just let that happen, what do I have to do? So that's what Kevin's doing. Static, we're doing a little bit of that. And I'm a little more active here in this because I'm connecting. He's connecting. But then I am going to listen to him and let him tell me how he'd like to fall. And if he doesn't like what's happening here and he reorganizes somehow, what would you change to not keep falling here?
Lean back.
Do it. See, then it wants to go this way.
Right.
And I'm letting you tell me that. I'm listening while I'm doing this. Does that make sense? So this is both I'm learning how to organize my structure in such a way that I can give direction to the energy of this attack. And I'm also developing a lot of sensitivity. I can feel what this guy's doing on his end because I'm being really quiet. I'm really listening. Okay? When you're muscling technique, you're not having a conversation, you're lecturing the other guy. Okay? You're just telling him. And then he gets to say no. So I want to have this dialogue going on. Okay? Does that make sense? So that's what you're doing with static. Has anybody not had some degree of success? So you feel like you've experienced it. Yes? Okay. Now what I want you to do is be there when he gets there. So the out, the back, the up, the down, you already did it. And when he touches it, just bend your knees. If it doesn't work for you, go back to the static. I mean, this is probably above some people's pay grade. I just want you to see it. The whole point of the static technique is to teach your body what it feels like to organize energetically in a certain way. Once you understand that, you're not waiting for this guy to grab you and then doing steps 1, 2, 3. You've already done steps 1, 2, 3, and you actually, in a lot of cases, don't need to do 1, 2, 3. You just go 1 because you understand what it feels like. Ikeda Sensei will call this creating the Ikkyo body. So he'll talk about Ikkyo. Okay, so I touch the center, and then I enter inside with my heart energy. I run some energy up my spine so he gets light, and then I rotate a little. Then I can drop on top of him. Okay? So I run that series. But see, once you know what that feels like, you just go do it. It's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anymore. 1. Maybe later in the weekend for that. Okay? What I want you to do now is just take what you've been doing. So if you lose it, go back to the static again and get it back. Okay? Touch, out to him, back to me. Give it direction. Okay? If you have that, just give it direction. So I know you think this is working because Let's get somebody who's considerably larger. You see him go, it's because they didn't push on his hands. You notice how successful it was when I pushed on his hands. I bounced off the floor through him. He's a seriously big guy. If you push on him, nothing good is going to happen. Okay? And that's him being nice, not doing anything back. I bounced off him. At that point, he could have taken my center. Okay? But when you run it from here through the contact point, that kind of size and strength doesn't make much difference. That was no harder on you than it was on you. Okay? Does that make sense? Right? If it's harder with the big guy, you're still muscling it. You're still running power where they're strong. It shouldn't make any difference at all. You know, when Aikido Sensei strings 2, 3, 4 guys together and then does it, we might even be able to do that a little bit tonight. The thing to realize, if you're doing Aiki, when there's 3 people holding on to your arm, it's no more difficult to put them on the floor than it was with 1. If it's more difficult with more attackers, then you're running into their power somehow. But if you're just giving direction to the energy of the connection, then it really doesn't matter how many of them are there. They're all connected, and you're saying, okay, all of you go down there. And it's the same amount of effort. I think before we end tonight, we're going to add some people. But see if you can get this, where he comes in, and you've already organized, and all you need to do is just drop. Okay? The out to him happened right there. By the time he came in, see how I've already been jiggling him a little? See, so I set his focal point there. He starts to organize, but by the time he actually comes, it's already giving. See him fall into my space a little bit? So then he's falling in here, and this is dropping on top, getting heavy, and then I stepped inside that. I got the force going so many different directions, he can't figure out how to focus in and get